performance. The poem is called Superheroes and Monsters. It's about my interpretation of who God is to me. And I thought it would be cool to have a whole bunch of superheroes in the background. See the superheroes on the wall? Yeah, so we'll work on it. Still rolling? Keeping it. Mic check. Mic check. Superheroes and monsters. Graffiti Bleu. We have officially reached the arc of this story. The crossroads, the fork in the road, the middle of this allegory. Guts and glory I use as metaphors for the two paths laid before me. Gut is a metaphor I gave the darkness, leaving me no choice but to give God the glory. Praise be unto you for everything that I overcame. Being young in my faith, I had not yet learned how to deal with the pain. Seems like when I look up for the light, my eyes burn from the sting of the rain. However, no matter the weather, my father is never at home, yet my mother bears his name. And when he does come home, he's typically stumbling, fumbling, and mumbling, drunk as a skunk. Even on those rare occasions he's sober and present, I feel like I'm not the son that he wants. I'm bringing home A's and B's and so beyond with my ABCs. Still my father's not acknowledging me. Actually, if you talk about academics, my father's face looks like he's bored. I feel ignored. Apparently, there's no reward for doing your best. My only break from that stress is occasionally feeling blessed because all my friends in class never met their dad. Now ain't that sad? Grimy, gritty, and shitty. Fortunately for me, at the time, my whole family lived in New York City. So my mother's brothers raised me by committee. And that was good for a time, until the decline of the strong black revolutionary critical mind. Thank you, Ronald Reagan and the CIA, for all the drugs you put in the ghetto at night, then saying crack is whack by day. I can go on, but this verse was not created to blame white people for black problems. This verse was crafted to take an abstract look at God's plan for me, examine its mystery, dissect it lyrically, and hopefully, testimony can solve them. But before I testify, I mean really testify, I will share my understanding of God so you can see this through my eyes. I will do this scientifically and certainly quite specifically to not say what God should be to you, but instead who she is to me. First, let us assume that that which we call God is actually perfect. Not just perfect when good days hit, or perfect when we're in the pulpit, but actually perfect, even when we're going through the bullshit. Now let us assume that God is love, period. Meaning that God is the manifestation of love itself, pure and uncut, the source of every good feeling, bright light, and idea. Yeah. So omnipotent, she makes the greatest scientific minds feel dumb. Because every scientist is aware of consciousness, but not one can tell you where it comes from. So these assumptions that God is perfect and God is love leave our egos and spirits in the midst of a scrimmage, confused by the notion that we were created in God's image. We look at ourselves as far from perfect, as well as many look at the story of Jesus and believe that on some level it was true, but few would actually do what Jesus would do. So at first, this line of thinking didn't work. We rarely perceive life to be perfect, and most believe that love hurts. So I realized that train of thought had to become new. Then I figured that the struggle in life might be hard because what we've been worshiping is a lesser form of God, who is less omnipotent and instead like me and you. Now let's assume we've got God twisted. She's not jealous, she's not vengeful, she's not a he in case you missed it. So if we assume all of that, then we would have to find a reason for human suffering to make all of those assumptions true. One doesn't have to look any further than the definition of virtue. To be good and only good for goodness sake couldn't be all there is, even though, ask some, and that's the preference, God was already good. Love was already good, but how could we measure good or appreciate good without a point of reference? Good by itself without any flip side or downside leaves you warm and fuzzy on the inside as well as fuzzy on the outside. Sort of like a rabbit. But there is nothing virtuous about a rabbit. They're harmless. They're helpless. In the game of life, they often get beaten. They often get eaten by the hunters of the world. Some refer to them as monsters. But is evil their sponsor? Or is hunger? How about the need to survive and stay alive? Necessary, very. Virtuous? Not really. So what is our purpose for suffering? What is God's great divine plan when it comes to pain? Let's go back to the assumption. If we assume God is perfect and God is the manifestation of love itself, then darkness has got to have a function. And the function is balance. And that has to be true because the balance between the dark and the light is where lies the virtue. We all start off helpless, naive, defenseless, like the rabbit. Then we get eaten by life's monsters, taken advantage of, used, abused, and we start getting in the habit of thinking that love is not the answer, ironically asking love the question, oh, why, God, why? Giving darkness a try. Eventually becoming what we hate, the hunter, the monster. Sounds about right? And the Lord said, let there be light. Follow. If we all became monsters but learn how to control our dark feelings when we find revenge appealing, we are virtuous. When we vibrate high among those who vibrate low and show the lost which way to go, we are virtuous. Doing what Jesus would do. Going into the darkest part of ourselves saying, let there be light, and transforming into something else, something higher, something greater. But we will discuss being greater later. There's a few other places we should go. First, I will tell you the story of my darkest hour and how the vision of my darkness was so vivid, it moved my spirit and made me a superhero.